Well, today we have a wonderful program about something very new, very important, and actually quite scary as well. We're going to be talking about digital assets and what we do with our estate plan. And I have to do mine over, so I got this lady that's going to help me. So today we are talking with a wonderful attorney who I had the great pleasure of meeting at an attorney breakfast. And we just had a great time talking. And I said, we have to do a show on these digital assets and what do we do with them if we're, dead. How do we handle all this? So let me just introduce Kay Walker, who is a wonderful estate planning attorney here in Orange County, California. Beautiful woman who is beautiful inside and out and brilliant. So Kay, thank you for joining us, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, first of all, Mari, thank you so much for having me today. I think this is a new area of law, and it's so very important to everyone that has a computer or a cell phone that they store any kind of information on. So I've been an attorney for many years, and I just really enjoy creating estate plans to protect my clients from the uncertainties of the future, because we really and truly don't know what we have in store for us. So that's what I do, and I'm so thrilled to be here and kind of give you the up-to-date law and what's going on in digital asset protection.
Right. And so many people don't even think about that. Like, what happens if I get disabled, or what happens if I pass on? What happens to my Facebook page and all my social networking and all, and now we do all of our banking online and our investments online. And a lot of times we don't even get paper stuff. I know I don't. So it is a very scary thing to think about, because your family is going to look for that stuff. They can't find it, or if they do find it, they might not be able to get into it, right? So exactly. Let's first talk about how do we protect and manage, at incapacity, at death. So let's start out with something easy. First of all, how did you get involved in this kind of aspect of estate planning?
Well, doing estate planning, we protect physical assets, your personal property, your real property, and those are really easy to identify. We can touch them, we can feel them. But now that we've gotten so techy, we have so much information that we create, that we sell, that we buy online, and that has our information all over the web. So if we remember back in the 70s when the first, home computers were coming out. Yeah. And then in the 80s, we had those big old brick phones that we thought were just the best thing ever. And who would have thought that 40 years later, we would be carrying every bit of information that we have on our cell phones, and we're purchasing items, we are doing business, we are doing social media, all on our phones and on our laptops. And so we're all over the web, and those assets are very much in need of protection. So when someone passes away, there needs to be a way to destroy, distribute, and first identify, and then give those to whomever needs them. So that's kind of how the area is developing. I think it's going to be changing a lot, and then in the coming future, we have no idea what we're up against. But for now, this is what we're trying to do.
Yes. And, I really worry about identity theft with regard to these assets too. Somebody taking over an account. And also, I have a friend that died 2 years ago, and her birthday came up on on Facebook, which, again, my heart just sunk. And I just wrote a little something, because her husband never took anything down. So I just wrote on that, miss you so much, and I hope you see this from heaven above. But I thought, oh my gosh, I should probably contact him and tell him maybe it's time to take it down.
Well, that is one of the issues, family, you can't just go on someone else's account and take it down. So right. There's certain rules and regulations that either like Facebook has, where you have to, either they have to have already given you just, the the permission to go on and destroy or delete or put it into a legacy account, or you have to be named in a document so that you can go on there legally, because they're not supposed to give any of that information. You're not supposed to be able to do
Yeah.
that.
So it's her husband, so he doesn't even have a right.
No,
See, this
no.
is something that I didn't know. I thought, I guess if it's in, if well, I guess it would have to specifically state in
Right.
her trust, right?
Exactly. Her trust or her will. And
Mhm.
that is, and I was going to kind of get into this, there's certain things that we need to do now to protect ourselves. And one of them is, there's like 5 or 6 different steps, but finally the legal system is catching up to our digital age. And California, back in 2017, they enacted the revised uh, Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, where I know it's so much.
These crazy names, right? Right.
Yeah. And it allows the executors or the trustees of the will or the trust to be named so that they can actually go in and act as that person.
Oh,
But,
good.
the thing is, like you were saying earlier, used to, you would go to the mailbox. So if there was someone, mom or dad or sister, brother passed away, you could go to the mailbox and wait for the bills to come and the bank statements to come. And at
Right.
least you'd have an indicator of, where these assets were.
Right.
But now we're not doing anything. And if your laptop is locked up with a code and no one can get into it, and your phone is locked up with another code, then it's virtually impossible to find out unless people have really planned for protecting these assets, meaning, they write them all down. First of all, we don't even know how many assets we have digital.
Exactly.
There's so many.
I know. And, I have all my passwords in LastPass, which is a password manager.
Right.
And my son, who is, an adult, he can get in there. So that I did. And actually my husband can get in there. So at least all of what was that? I wonder what just
Uh-oh.
oh, for a second I lost you.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, that is a way, at least if you have a password manager and your trustee or your husband or your wife or someone has that LastPass, that's where all my financial assets are. And all
Exactly.
my passwords with 25 letters, numbers, and characters, at least in LastPass, so that no one has to remember and I didn't have to write it down. It's encrypted. And, that's one thing. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Those managers, LastPass, Dashline, RoboForm, One Password, any of those that you can, give one password and then they'll be able to get into and see all of your documents and all of your passwords and usernames and all of that. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And then they, and then you don't have to write it down and find a safe place and
Right.
like in the old days, right? But
Right.
it's dangerous. You have to find a really safe place, fireproof, safe,
Yeah.
that you feel secure in putting all this really important information in.
Right. So at least, I have mine, I guess LastPass is in the cloud. So even if there was a fire, they could get into LastPass anyway without that. So that's what I considered was at least a little bit. I knew enough to know, well, I want it in there so that I've got all my financial documents. I mean, even my passwords for like Hertz,
Right.
everything is on there because otherwise you make yourself crazy trying to remember. So all of those, I guess, could be canceled by my
Yes.
son or my husband under
Whoever
those.
you appoint.
Yeah.
And that is another thing, I mean, there's different types of digital assets, like your social media. You might want your son or daughter, because they're more familiar with the process,
Right.
to manage those. And then obviously your business account, you're going to want somebody that's intimately involved in the business to know what those passwords are so they can manage your business. So
Right.
it's not just necessarily naming one person. In the will or the trust, along with the executor or trustee that you name, you can also name another one for your digital assets. It
Oh,
can be the same person, but you can also name a different one for those digital assets. And then it's a whole, a whole description of how you want them handled and who you want them to go to. Because,
right.
think about how many pictures you have of family or major events. I mean, a lot of sentimental things we have on our cell phone, and you can decide who those go to. So
Right. Right.
it's a big process. This is not something, easy. People think when they do their estate plan, it's going to be, oh,
Yeah.
I'll have my uncle be my executor and that'll be all I do.
And
But
then he gets it and he goes, "Oh my God, what do I do?"
this is a huge job. I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where it's our responsibility to really work the system, get everything down, write everything down, have it in a safe place. So when it's time, these whoever's in charge will not only be grieving for the loss, but then they don't have to worry so much about where to go and what to do and how to do it and what we would actually want. So our wishes are carried out.
Yeah. So nowadays, pretty much everything is a digital asset, right? I mean, that's a really good question. What is a digital asset? Maybe we should
Digital
clarify
asset
for my
is,
audience. Yeah.
yeah, it's anything on your laptop, your phone. It's everything. And it's gotten so intense that, I think we generally think that, only digital assets we have maybe are, Facebook or something like that. But it goes to your music. It's any kind of programming that you've done. Look at all the digital assets you have with your radio show and all of the programs that you have that are online. Those are valuable, and they
And
should
websites, right?
be right.
Websites. Yeah. Even
Websites,
LinkedIn, your
emails,
LinkedIn account. If you
exactly.
really think about all these things, I mean, my LastPass list is like several pages, and I'm thinking, oh
Exactly.
my gosh, I wouldn't want to make it real difficult for my son and my husband and my daughter to have to deal with that. So when you're dealing with clients, I mean, this is like a whole new life. I mean, I would think these older estate planning attorneys probably just retire because they don't want to deal with this. I mean, thank God, you're with it, you're young, but you're experienced. So if someone comes in, like if I were to come in there, okay,
Mhm.
would you just give me a list of what I need to provide and make sure that how do you do that?
Well, great that you ask because I have a digital asset inventory worksheet, and I would give that to you. And it's, at least a starter on, what you have, how you can use it, where it's going to go, and things like that. So that's what you would start, just like we do with real property and
Right.
personal property. You just make another inventory, and if you have to go on your LastPass or wherever to get that information. But it's really important that we have it all in the document so that you can manage it. And the identity and how to get to it. If you can just, help your heirs out by letting them know what you have and how to get a hold of it. Because think too, I mean, we have a whole new era now of Bitcoins. I mean, we have cryptocurrency. We are not talking about just an email and those kind of digital assets. Now we're
Yeah.
talking about real life,
And
money.
my IRAs and all my investments, everything is online, right? I mean, everything is kept my bank account. I do online banking, everything. I don't get bills in the mail
No,
anymore.
I don't think anybody does. So
Yeah.
that's where you really have to dig hard and try to find out what you really have and how you want it to, who you want it to go to. I mean, that is it's always an ordeal, even with your real property. So
Yeah.
how
Right.
do you determine who gets what of your pictures, or who's going to get the business? And so
Right.
it is pretty daunting, but it's definitely worth it because, you know, we have created this world that we live in now, and we have to take care of it.
Yes. And I really think it's a great idea for the whole family to know, because I know some families they don't, and I've ended up doing the mediations of these fights. You got that? How dare my mom give that to you? Oh, well, you were the favorite, and then I'm sitting there with a whole family that hates each other now because
Right.
of the estate plan of the parents.
Right.
And it's tragic. So I think, the one thing that I did many, many years ago, probably before you were an attorney, is like my parents, when I first started out in law, I had a friend who was an estate planning attorney, and she brought my sister. I just have one sibling, one sister, and my parents together, and we talked about everything. So
Exactly.
that when my parents did pass, when one passed, we knew exactly what to do. When the second one passed, we knew what to do. We knew about the jewelry, we knew about everything. And there was never any argument between my sister and I, which is really beautiful
That
for
is,
us.
it's really something.
Yeah. And now what I say, I think, why didn't these people do it? They should come in as a family, or at least if the parents are doing something, then they should bring the kids in and say, this
Yes.
is why we did it. We may update it if something else happens, but this is what we're going to do. And this is the reason why.
And
And then, if they
I
want to
think
fight with
that's
their parents, then fine.
exactly
When you
well.
call, that's when you call in a mediator, right?
Yes, but that's, I really encourage all of my clients to have an open communication with, all of their family members, and put everything out there so that there won't be that heartache and all of the fighting that goes on oftentimes after. I mean, we've all seen, mom and dad didn't communicate, or they just didn't plan. I mean, there's always those people. There's only 40% of the population that have an estate plan.
Yeah.
And that means, 4 out of 10 of us have it and 6 don't. And it's kind of bewildering to me because we all know that at some point we're going to pass away. We're
Yeah.
not going to get out of this life
We
alive.
just don't know when, right?
We don't know when, and that uncertainty of, when could we have that accident and become incapacitated and
Right.
not be able to speak for ourselves. And that's the health care directive, the power of attorney, all of this plays together for not only after we pass, but that period of time between now and then that's so uncertain.
Right. And, I think exactly what you're talking about, that when we have to look at it, because things change too, so like I have an estate plan that I've had, and I updated it once, but I realize now it's time for me. And I'm a lawyer, and I told you this before, Kay, that it's time for me, because things change. You grow up, your kids change, things, there might be grandchildren, there might be other things that happen, so that your trust or your will is not up to date. But I think another important thing that people may not realize is that if you don't have a trust and you only have a will, then you have to go through probate. Tell them about that in California.
Well, probate is something no one wants to go through or experience or have their families experience with them or for them. It's, well, you think right now in the state of California, for the first $100,000 that you have of total assets, it's 4% right off the top of the statutory fees to be given to the attorney generally. And so if you have $1 million in assets, which if you own a home in Southern California, you probably have over $1 million in assets.
Right,
And you
right,
don't have a plan that's $23,000 in fees. So
right.
people,
So, even if if you've got a house that, you don't have much money, but you have this house, it's going to
right?
be very expensive. So,
Exactly. And
yeah.
it's
And
time consuming, and not only that, all of your estate is known to the world because when
right.
you file paperwork with the courts, it is public record.
Public record,
Yeah.
right,
And,
right.
and you don't really want hopefully you don't want, everyone to know what your business is. So there's a lot of peace of mind that comes from, and now the ever increasing digital, and as you mentioned before, the whole fraud, identity theft, when you have, someone that's unable to do anything with their assets, and they're probably easy prey for
Oh,
some.
they are. And not only that, even if they've passed on, they're easy prey. And
Right.
yeah, I had on Kevin Mitnick, who is the big hacker who went to jail, but then he now works in security, and he wrote the art of intrusion and the art of deception. And he committed identity theft with people who died. He did it all the time. He explained it to me on my radio show, Privacy Piracy. So this is real scary. If you have a family member that has died, you got to immediately notify Social Security, immediately take their name, their credit reports offline, all those things that people just don't know about. But
Right.
I had a question for you, Kay. And again, we're speaking with Kay Porter, a wonderful estate planning attorney right here in Orange County, California. Now, on your website, do you have some place to download that form to fill out the digital assets?
I was either that, or they can just email me directly at
Okay.
my email, which is kay@gkwalkerlaw.com.
So
And
give that website again too, gkwalkerlaw.com.
gkwalkerlaw.com. Uh-huh.
GK
The
Walker.
K is spelt out, so I had to make it as difficult as possible.
Right. But it would really be helpful for people to see that up on your website, and then they can download it, and then they can say, gee, even if they're not in this state, if they're in Orange County, they can contact you, they can get some great help. But even if they're not, at least they have a start to, start looking at how can they get some help. So yeah, I had a couple other questions that I wanted to ask you. We have about 5 minutes left, so I want to be able to ask you some things that I think are important. So one of the things that you might want to ask is, how do you select an estate planning person that you can trust, that you can feel good about? How do you do that? For me, when I did it, I knew the person. I knew she was ethical and all this stuff, and my parents liked her, and she got along with the family. So how do you choose someone to be the person?
Well, I think interviewing and getting referrals, of course, is a great idea,
Yeah.
because this is a very intimate relationship, kind of like in family law. You're gonna disclose a lot of information, and you're gonna talk a lot about family dynamics, and
All the privacy stuff. That's why you're on Privacy Piracy.
right, exactly. So that there's a certain amount of chemistry, and I don't want to make it sound too gooey, but there's
There
the
is. You're right, though.
knowledge that the person has, and the way that you feel about their your relationship with them, and if you feel comfortable to disclose this, because this is not a I think kind of the notion is that everything's on a template, and we just fill in the blanks, and
Right.
that's really not the way that it's done in my office anyway.
And people forget about things, so you have to have an attorney that asks really good questions.
Right.
Oh, I forgot about that issue.
And there's a lot of issues. It's not just asset issues. It's do you have a child with special needs? And that's a whole nother conversation that we like to have. And you have to really get intimate and have those kind of detailed informational talks. And there'll be a lot of questions that go back and forth. So, you need to have an easy conversation. And
especially nowadays, I do the divorce mediation, and there's so many blended families. And even in my house, my husband has 2 kids, and so then, and I have 2 kids, and then there's grandchildren, and there's, how are you going to do, who, if I die first, if he dies first, want to make sure that our children are taken care of. So it's not just like you have this little family and you have just 2 parents trying to divide it. It could be a whole number of people, and stepchildren and adopted children, and oh my goodness, it
just
gets
goes on and on. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's complicated. You really want to make sure that you just don't do one of these, they have all these online things that you can do your will and trust.
Yes.
And you know, if you want to start with it to get an idea, you know, but then go to an estate planning attorney that can say, wait a minute, did you
That's right.
remember this? Did you remember
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
and then there's the you know, there's tax issues. There's all kinds of other
Yeah.
people
Big,
that
big,
need to be part of the team to make this an effective estate plan.
right.
So that's what we try to do. You know, just work with people, and I just encourage everyone to. You know, if you want to interview attorneys, they typically do 30-minute consultation for
Right.
free, and you can kind of get to know what their behavior is, how could you work together. So
How
that's my
experienced
suggestion.
they are, and you know, whether they're with it. Yeah.
Whether they're
So
with it yet.
whether they know what's going on, you know, because I've said some things to other estate planning attorneys, like, what do you do about digital assets? And they kind of go, um, well, you know, they don't know what to tell me. This is why when I met you and I said, oh my gosh, this is a huge issue. It's a privacy issue because you want to protect yourself
Yes.
or, you know, for the future. And, you know, do I want my Facebook taken down? Do I not want it taken down? You know, what is all the stuff about that? But we are just about out of time. So see, just good.
Oh
We
my
did a
goodness.
great job on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kay, again, will you tell us your website and real quick, and then it's going to be time to go.
Okay. My website is gkwalkerlaw.com. And
Right.
I would love to hear from you. I want to be sure and get an appointment with you because you need to do your estate plan.
Have to
And
update mine. Yes.
exactly. And anyone else, anyone, they're free to call me or contact me on the website. I'm happy to answer any questions and kind of get the ball rolling. And, once you start thinking about it, then that's the time you need to move because it is a difficult process. I'm
Yeah,
not going to
because
say
we
it's easy.
never know. We never know what's going to happen. And
So
so thank you so much, Kay, for
thank
the
you.
great work you're doing and really, you know, thinking in the present about what the important issues are, which a lot of other people aren't. So yeah, so we love having you and we will stay in touch. And thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it so much. It was a pleasure. Really fun. Thank you.